Federal officials say an ICE officer was forced to open fire after a suspect allegedly drove a van toward agents during an enforcement operation in Houston. Federal immigration agents say a routine enforcement operation turned deadly just before 7 a.m. Tuesday in Houston. ICE officers were attempting to stop 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Arujo, a Mexican national whom the agency says was living in the U.S. illegally and was the subject of a targeted enforcement operation. Now, according to ICE, the man refused repeated commands to stop, rammed an ICE vehicle, and then used his van in an attempt to run over an agent. An ICE officer responded by firing in what the agency says was self-defense. Salgado Arujo later died at a Houston hospital. His family disputes ICE's account and has called for an independent investigation, while federal authorities, including the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General, are reviewing the shooting. Joining me now, former senior advisor to DHS under Alejandro Mayorkas, Bernie Flowers, as well as retired special agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations, James T. Hayes. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. DHS says this guy, Salgado Arujo, ignored commands, used the vehicle in a way that endangered another officer. Critics are trying to blend it into separate debates, whether immigration laws should be enforced and whether an individual officer's use of force was justified. Bernie, what do you make of what we know so far of this situation?
Well, Todd, first, my condolences go out to the family. Nobody wants to see anyone die. However, we are American citizens. We have laws here, and when a federal agent or a law enforcement officer gives you a command, you have a responsibility to obey it. This was entirely preventable, and I'm looking forward to the results of the investigation.
James, I want to get your take on this. MS Now comparing this man's death to the death of Renee Good, who similarly drove her vehicle at an ICE agent. We've, of course, seen this happen before. Take a look at that.
The Department of Homeland Security says Salgado weaponized his vehicle and tried to run over an agent who fired in self-defense. Where have we heard that before?
And it's always been a lie before. That lie about the shooting down, the gunning down of Renee Good through the side window spread by the entire MAGA ecosystem, and it was disgusting. Proved to be a lie. It proved to be a lie.
It proved to be a lie. I don't know if that's quite a black and white issue. James, what do you make of MS Now and how they're covering this particular incident?
Well, it's very similar to what we've seen anytime there's been an enforcement action that's resulted in use of force by immigration enforcement agents. And it's not new. This isn't just happening under the Trump administration. This is a progression that we've seen from the time that I was in the agency, where advocates are handing out pamphlets, telling people how to evade immigration officers, treating immigration laws as if they're voluntary, and they're simply not. And look, this is obviously a tragedy. Any death is a tragedy, but as was said, it was a preventable tragedy, and one that's, I think, decades in the making of people being encouraged and taught. In fact, this gentleman's family said he had a plan of what to do when he was stopped by immigration enforcement agents. And unfortunately, it seems like this did not go according to plan, tragically.
Yeah, DHS has actually acknowledged that this man, Salgado Arujo, was not the original target of the operation. So this wasn't really about him, but he didn't obey commands. Bernie, as we look at this, is this just another example of do the simple thing and obey the commands of law enforcement and live to fight another day in court?
It's very clear. That's exactly what's happened here. It's a perfect example. And again, it doesn't just matter whether you're, working with ICE or working with local law enforcement. The bottom line is the person with the badge is in charge in a command situation. And you have to follow the rules. You have to follow the dictates of that law enforcement officer. And then after everything is over, then you can sort everything out if you want to sue somebody, whatever. But I put my trust in the law enforcement folks. They are deeply and heavily trained. They know what they're doing. And we just can't have lawless folks running around, disobeying police officers.
James, final question here. We know that ICE has come under scrutiny for some various situations, but this sounds a lot less like it was chaotic and more people not obeying law enforcement. Do you think ICE has learned from maybe past mistakes and have learned from them and adjusted, or do you think there's still more work to do?
I think the agency takes these situations very seriously. They've adopted a little bit of a different approach since the events in Minnesota, but there will be an investigation into this incident, and we have to wait for the results of that investigation to give us all the facts of what actually occurred. But it's not lost on me that there has been an increase in the amount of assaults on ICE officers, that there's been an increase in the amount of threats against ICE officers, particularly against ICE management. And all of that feeds into this environment where, unfortunately, officers are going to feel more on edge, particularly when, if it's true that the commands were not being followed, that a vehicle was rammed, then yes, they are going to feel like their life is in danger and feel that they need to take action to save themselves, their partners, and innocent members of the public as well.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and we know that ICE agents are doing a very dangerous job, and it's even more dangerous when people are doxing them and threatening their families. But it has to be done. We need the deportations to continue. Bernie Flowers, James T. Hayes, thank you both for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, breaking news now.